Should be
There we go.
Kind of little adventure.
Exactly. Well, that's what this is meant to be. And then it'll lead to something else and lead to something else and lead to something else. And that's all that's all I want this to be, because I am not one for anything stagnant. I really want life to be change, right? This is the reason I've learned so many things and done so many jobs. It's just, why not?
Yeah.
I can do anything if I just put time and attention in, and then that leads to other things you didn't even know were possibilities before you learned all of these other, like the precursors, right? So anyway, here we are for an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw call-in edition. Love these are a lot of fun. Obviously, we were already chatting before we started with this. We were recording an episode of Dualistic Unity Social. The last few days since the retreat have been interesting, and it's just because I've been neck deep in the shit, not knee deep in the shit, neck deep in the shit, in terms of just uncertainty and the emotional spectrum and all of the possible narratives that could be part of whatever's going on in my life, and then recognizing that all of those narratives are fairly superficial and require me to make certain assumptions. As soon as I question those assumptions, those narratives fall apart, leaving me back in that uncomfortable state of uncertainty, to which again I reach for more narratives and question those and unravel those and come back to that state of uncertainty, eventually recognizing if I just calm the fuck down, I don't have to keep creating narratives, because I'm not panicking, because the narratives are the panic response. They're me trying to grasp for some sense of control, for some sense of what's happening, for some sense of how I'm doing and where everything is going and where it's come from. And each and every time, it's a very narrow-minded, superficial story that requires me to ignore a bunch of other things that are either unknowns or unknown unknowns or known unknowns, or however you'd like to put it. The point is I have to disregard a bunch of other stuff. I have to make assumptions. All of the narratives are based on assumptions. And that's it. I just have to relax through that. And once I relax through that, then I'm here. And that's what the retreats always drive home for me. It's just that the cycle of uncertainty to narrative to uncertainty to narrative to uncertainty to narrative does not have to be this roller coaster ride. You can just breathe and recognize that it's a natural swinging of the pendulum, but that the swinging of the pendulum does in fact get more erratic the more you're in there fucking bouncing it around out of preference. I don't like it going that way, and it swings the other way out that much harder. It's just allowing it to be what it is, and everything slows down with you.
Fucking A, as you're talking, it was just hitting me how like all I have outside of being here are my assumptions. Like everything that's not just what's going on, like us talking, me sitting here in front of this computer is a fucking assumption. And this morning I was going through all these things, talking to someone about like moving to another city, potential roommate, new spot, got something injury bothering me, all that, but like it's just uncertain. It's not even hurting. It's just like it feels different and weird. And like it just hit as you were talking. I was like, fuck, I went through like 5 different things and they're all just assumptions. Like they're all just assumptions. Like none of them are actual things that I can like point to or focus or like think about when I actually sit there and I'm like, what is this that I'm going through or feeling or whatever? And like everything outside of just whatever we're doing in the moment is an assumption. And it's not to say like, never do anything, but like for the most part, keep in mind, like everything, all the shit going on in your head is just an assumption. Like it's not a thing that is happening, that you can guarantee will happen, that it's going to definitely mean a certain thing. And so like be like, if I were to just silo and just be here, it's like everything outside of this is just my fucking assumptions. And I hold on to that so I can feel like I can be sure of something, because the alternative is just being here, like just being focused on what's going on, making the most of whatever situation that I'm in. Like even, and it's not even just outside of here, like any idea I have of what's going on here is also just an assumption. So it's like anything that's going on in my head about what something should be or could be or might be or I want to be is just assumptions. Like it's not even everything outside of here and now. It's any idea I have of what's going on here and now is also just an assumption. And that's a very freeing realization, and also just puts you in that spot of uncertainty. And and if you can be cool with that, like, yeah, everything's uncertain and it always has been and it always will be, and that's okay. Like I'm here, like I can do something with this. And the less assumptions I hold on to, the less fucking weight I'm holding on to, the less distracted that I am. But as I start focusing on potential assumptions, it'll always be there. Like that's the thing too. I think I'm gaining more and more of an appreciation for is you're not getting to a spot. I'm not getting to a spot where there isn't the potential to focus on a bunch of bullshit assumptions, on a bunch of stuff that's going to make me feel very uncomfortable, uneasy, like make me feel anxious, nervous, worried, afraid. Like the potential to focus on that shit that makes me feel all of those things is always there. Like it's always going to be there. It's always an option, but it's not the only option. Like you don't have to do that. It doesn't have the benefit that I maybe at one point perceived that it did, or that I recently thought that it did. Because I must have thought there was going to be some benefit to looking at it if I kept doing it. Right. Like, or at least there's some, I don't know, comfort in the familiarity of it, or like it's going to get me to what? Like, where is it getting? It's not getting me anywhere. It's not getting me to a spot that's more, I don't know, that's better necessarily. Even the spot of getting somewhere, quote unquote, better is a fucking bullshit illusion. And when you realize that, like, you're not turning into anything, you're not becoming anything, you're not getting to this, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or peak of the mountain, or higher self, or any of the stuff that kind of keeps us on the track of focusing on everything besides what's going on right now, which is the only spot that we have influence. Like, you're not getting to any of those things. You're not turning into any of that stuff. Like, as it plays out, sure, but it's from how you're being informed right now. And in order to avoid or try and mitigate or suppress change from happening, you can focus on all the things that aren't happening right now. You can keep kind of going on this cycle of just focusing on a bunch of bullshit, like a bunch of assumptions, in order to maintain certain perspectives. But as you bring your attention back to just where you're at, like doing the things that you're doing, like that change continues to play out because you start noticing more things. You start realizing, oh, these assumptions that I have kind of aren't true. Like, they don't make as much sense unless I'm distracting myself from what's actually happening. Because so many of our assumptions too are not even close to what's actually happening. We can maintain ideas of ourselves on either side, whether it's a positive or a negative idea that isn't actually how things are playing out right now. So as you start paying attention to that, you start noticing some things, maybe some uncomfortable things, maybe some things where you had, a positive idea of yourself. You start realizing, oh, maybe it's not on that far of that end as I thought. And then the things that you thought, the familiar stories you tell yourself about, the negative perceptions of yourself, you start to realize, oh, maybe those aren't true either. And then you're like, fuck, maybe I don't know so much about myself. Maybe all of those things I thought about myself were just those assumptions as well. So it's like situational assumptions, but also all the ideas about you, all the ideas about me are also just assumptions. Like, the entire idea of myself is just some like massive assumption, but just a culmination of a bunch of little tiny, minute assumptions. And so I feel like I set a record for saying assumption most times in a couple minutes there, but that's what we're doing. Like, if you're not being
Sounds
here
like
paying
an assumption.
Oh, well said. And that's what I'll leave it.
Oh man, it's so interesting. I said this to you the other day that looking back at my life, I see so many situations that I panicked my way through that I would have gotten through without the panic. And that all of the panic was based on an assumption. If it wasn't an assumption of what was going to happen, it was an assumption about my inability to deal with it. Because really, I don't know. That's another assumption. Every time we defeat ourselves before we even start something, that's an assumption. It's an assumption that we're not going to figure things out as we go through life. It's just because it makes us uncomfortable. There's that giant question mark all the time. And so we just assume that we need that sense of control. And it's so funny because you talking about it, it's like, but it doesn't do anything. It's like, right, but it feels like it does something. Control feels like you're doing something. And that is what we settle for. Because the alternative is to just keep going along for the ride, understanding that at best you have influence, but that if you become single-minded in your desire to get what you want, because you think it's going to make you more, it's really the only reason you need it so badly, there's going to be suffering. There's going to be consequence to that single-mindedness. There's going to be a certain blindness that goes with it. It's just accepting that. And just going forward and just letting life unfold. But you start to recognize that it feels very free to do so. And after years of doing so, you start to actually take it in. Holy shit, this is actually, you can actually live like this. Whereas everybody around you is like, no, you need a plan. You need to know where you're going to be in 20 years. You got to have, investments. You need to know, you need to have a sense of control and certainty. It's, you'll never have it. You'll never have it. This is something that we keep seeing over and over in the economy, especially. Everybody was like, oh yeah, the economy's doing great. 2008 comes around, everybody just gets a fucking shit kicking, right? Because everything is in flux all the time. There is no control. But we have so many safeguards that we have the illusion of control. In the same way that New Orleans had the illusion of control with their levees before Hurricane Katrina. And this is the arrogance of mankind. We think that because we're so clever, we can outsmart nature. We can outsmart reality, that we can somehow keep cause and effect at bay just because, we're so damn clever. But eventually we always get overpowered because we don't have control. We're a part of everything. We don't have dominion over it. As I said, that's by far my favorite part of Genesis, dominion over the world. What a terrible word. What a bad choice of word. This is a call-in show. So I want to mention to everybody, thank you for joining us. First of all, if you would like to join us for up to 10 minutes on the call-in show, you can do so at dualisticunity.com/live. There's a form that you have to fill in telling us a little bit about yourself and agreeing that you are going to be on a podcast episode. So if you're uncomfortable with people hearing you, don't go to dualisticunity.com/live. But if you're not uncomfortable, or if you are uncomfortable and you figure, well, fuck it, when am I not uncomfortable? I'm going to do it anyway. Then please do join us, because that's the kind of conversation that we love.
Yeah, I love when someone shows up and they're like, I'm super fucking nervous right now and I don't really know what to talk about. And it's like, all right, we can talk about that. We can talk about how dope it is that you were nervous as fuck and uncomfortable and showed up. And how's it going? We have stuff that we've been talking about. You want to join in? You want to hop in? But that illusion of control is so funny, and how much I've noticed it in my own life with different things, and even just like something very superficial, like my hair, for example. Like going back to old video, like now this is bedhead right now. Like I woke up and didn't do anything with this and haven't showered yet. Just admittedly haven't just been doing stuff. And yeah, and this is like how it is. And it's so funny because like I look back at I didn't even realize how much I was doing. And it's not like I know people who like blow dry their hair and do all this, spend like fucking an hour in the morning doing shit, like guys, males and females. And it was just funny. Like I looked back at some older videos and I was like, holy fuck, I had a very, very specific sort of way of controlling that, because it was like how I wanted it to look, and there was this illusion that it would be like something beyond that someone else would like how it looked because I liked how it looked. And it's like how much we expand or exacerbate, I don't know what exactly the word should be for this, but like our own opinion of something and just make the assumption that everyone else is going to have that same opinion with no guarantee whatsoever. And just because you like something, and I'm not saying like don't do the things you like, but there's kind of this assumption like if you're living and doing things with yourself or living in order to please someone else just by pleasing yourself, like there's no way to actually guarantee that that is what someone else wants to see or wants to do. Like if anything, most people enjoy and appreciate being around someone who isn't hoping that they see them in any way, who's just fucking relaxed and just there with them and not putting on this sort of like fucking facade to be something. And so I just found it funny how much that was like another mechanism of control, like the way that we look. And it's like, look how you want to look. And most of the time, when you really get into that, it's like, what's the easiest way to do it? Like fucking last time I got a haircut, I did that thing. You can actually see it on my Instagram. And I wanted them to go short and like they wouldn't because they're, doing their own thing. So they wanted to cut it how they wanted to cut it. And I was like, all right, sure, give me a free haircut, whatever. But I was like, yeah, I want it shorter. And I just want to be able to wake up in the morning and like just leave it. And there's a part of me that's like thinking about, should I just shave my head? And that's the easiest way to go. And yeah, well, maybe we'll get to that point. Well, there's still some vanity left in there. I'm not going to lie, but it comes down to like what impacts your experience with the recognition that there is no control. It's like you might as well make things easier for yourself because there's no guarantee one way or the other, basically, I think is the point that I'm trying to come to. So you might as well just do it for you. And usually when you're doing that, it's like, all right, what's the easiest way for me to do things? Like it's probably not getting all dressed up and fancy and putting on all this stuff to look a certain way. That's going to be a pain in the ass for your experience. But at the same time, if you enjoy doing that, like from time to time, throw a suit on. I enjoy doing that. Certainly not every day or every week or every month, but once or twice a year, can be kind of fun. And there's no wrong way to do it. If you like wearing a suit every day and that's just how you like dressing, like fucking wear a suit every day. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just funny how much will play into the illusion of control. Like, because I'm seeing things in this way, everyone else is going to see it in this way. And like, you can guarantee that everyone else is going to see it differently. That's the only thing you can guarantee. And your assumptions about what's going on aren't what's going on. They're just your assumptions. And I know we have someone in the waiting room that I'm super pumped to chat with. So I'm going to stop talking now.
Well, I wouldn't say stop talking because, of course, we still have to let her into the room. It's Marie, who we haven't seen in a little while because, of course, we were at the Netherlands retreat and we just got back and started connecting with the community again. This is going to be a fun conversation. It's nice that she could join us today. But we're always just going through it. That's the point. We're processing all of this stuff and there's a lot to say, as much as there's nothing to say at all. Again, both and neither. Marie, hello.
Hey.
What's up?
Oh my God, it's so good to see y'all. How are you?
Doing well. 2 thumbs up.
So, I've been really enjoying hearing like the experiences of the retreat. Like the first person I got to hear it from, it was really cool, was Amanda. When Amanda and Jackie went live that day, I was like, oh shit. Like I love getting that alert because whenever I can tune in, I do. Because even if I'm doing something, it's really cool to like hear where the conversation goes. And it's always aligned with what's happening in my experience as well. So it's just really funny. I'm currently in a Discord like live stream that Jazz set up. It's like on my iPad that we're watching y'all on. So I'm like seeing myself in that at the same time, which is really fun. I knew that would add a little spice to this experience. But I'm curious because I haven't got a chance to hear so much of your perspective yet. And that's why I'm so excited I get to see you both. And like, because I really love hearing about the retreats, and I know I'll experience it someday, but it's just like so, like I love hearing of people's experiences and their learning and what they, you know, how they're seeing things and their perspective, all of it. So I guess since I've heard stories of past retreats, and I know not even as much as I probably would want to, but what was unique about this one, or what stood out to you about this one for both of y'all?
I'm going to pass this to Andrew first.
That is a fantastic question. I feel like we've kind of talked about the retreat a bit, but like haven't really gotten into it. So I appreciate the opportunity. Marie, I think this one was a lot of fun. I've talked about it before, but like the big takeaway for me was just like, I don't have to fucking be something for people. Like everyone's better off if I'm not trying to be something, because I felt like a very visceral difference between when I was maintaining some idea of being a host and when I wasn't, when I was just being there as a fucking person. And it's way easier to see yourself in people, because you can't see yourself in someone else if you're maintaining a fucking idea of what you're supposed to be or the role that you should be playing. So that was huge just for me personally. I think it was incredible, just the size of it. It was twice as big as any other retreat that we've had. We had 25 people in a house. Like that was really fucking cool. So just to feel the energy and just the ability to see things playing out and just like doing things and just having a good time. And I think this one, we did the most karaoke at this one too. And to just be able to hang loose, like to just really let go and relax. And it comes from not trying to be anything for anyone. And like, there's sort of a gravity in a good way to everyone being able to do that and like being willing to do that. And there isn't any, even, it's not even like the consideration of judgment came into my mind at all. Like it almost felt like it didn't exist in a sense. Whereas every other situation I've been in, even when I am, you know, dancing like a crazy monkey, like it's in the back of my mind, and that just like wasn't there at all. And I think that's a big, I don't know what the word, like push or I have no idea what the word is for this, but a big thumbs thumbs up to everyone who was there, because everyone was a part of that. Like everyone made that what it was, just like everyone always makes the retreats what they were. And I think everyone and at least majority of people doing it for themselves, just making the most of their experience for themselves was very felt. And there's just so much of a pulse of that, and like a feeling of that when there's that many people being willing to do that. You're like, oh, this type of situation, because of previous retreats, they're a little bit more intimate, they're smaller, there's less people, but like this was very much like a crowd. And you know, when you have a crowd doing that, it's like, oh, maybe this is a possible way to live. Like maybe you can see it more like playing out in reality. Granted, it was 25 people. It's still not, you know, thousands, but 25 people is a lot of people to be under one roof, sharing sort of a mentality of just being willing to open up and not be so guarded. And so that for me was really cool. I know I said a couple things, but yeah, for me, that was some of my big takeaways for sure.
That's a good answer for sure. I think for me, it was more of what I've kind of experienced before, but because there were so many people at the retreat doing it, it was so much more, I guess, all encompassing. Like I just couldn't stop seeing it. And what I mean is that for me, we're all kind of on a spectrum going towards ourselves or away from ourselves in terms of our perception, right? We're either getting more and more involved with this fictitious self and the idea of control. And so we're tensing up, we're stressing in regards to uncertainty and change, we're holding on to things, or we're just in that process of kind of letting go. But as such, there's also degrees of, I guess, velocity in one way or another. Like you could be going towards a sense of control, but way more slowly than you used to because you don't believe in it as much, so it's like, yeah, you'll go in that direction, but you catch yourself fairly quickly. Whereas other people, it's just still their default. They're just like, fuck it, I'm going for control. I know that realm, that's where I want to go. And then other people are kind of gradually going towards relaxation, or they're firmly in that direction. They're just like, yeah, nothing to worry about. And so for me, it was really interesting to watch the interplay of all of those different mentalities, of all those different velocities and directions, how somebody going towards relaxation would encounter somebody who was going starkly towards control. And then they would kind of balance each other out for a few seconds as the conversation happened, or they would talk for like an hour or two, and then they'd go off in their own directions, and then they would encounter somebody else that was kind of on that. And so there was this constant balancing of the mentality of the retreat, just by everybody being open and willing to talk, regardless of the mentality that they might have been in, whether they were feeling controlling or they were feeling relaxed. So long as they were willing to be with the group, so long as they were willing to actually just talk to people, and not even with the group, but just whoever you happen to be around, there's that person. You don't run away from them, as it were, right? As long as they were willing to be there, even if they were dealing with emotions like, oh God, I'm going through too much stuff, I feel like a burden to everybody, and just staying with us regardless of that, there was also always this processing going on. And it wasn't until somebody would feel that they didn't want to be a part of that process, that they would just like move themselves out of the group deliberately to maintain their own narratives of what was going on. That's when you would see that person stop being a part of that process. But up until that moment, up until that point where they were no longer feeling or allowing themselves to express, there was this constant growth, whether it was slow or not. There was this constant elevation in terms of awareness and empathy and a willingness to question themselves. It was just so very interesting to watch how it's not about anything that I'm doing or Andrew's doing or any one person is doing at the retreat. It's the interplay of all of them, all of the time throughout the entire thing. And as long as they're willing to actually participate in that interplay, it's like watching intelligence in motion. And it was incredible and a little overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. Like I was there, I was just like, holy shit, what the fuck am I a part of? I'm looking back at 20 years of my life, and all of a sudden it's like, I couldn't have even seen this aspect of what I was seeing. I couldn't have anticipated it because I couldn't see other people. I was too busy looking at my idea of other people. And so it was really jarring, and at the same time, super emotional. I was going through it kind of, in fear and at the same time, joy, and so that's how I figure it was a good experience. It was intense as fuck. And what's interesting is that after it, it's still intense. Like I'm still going through everything that kind of came out of that experience. So yeah, the retreats. Good question. Thanks for asking, Marie.
Oh my God, thanks for sharing. That was I appreciate hearing it because I really liked Amanda's perspective too, because it sounded similar of just letting go of these assumptions or expectations more and more. Like I really don't have to show up for anyone for this retreat except for myself. And so like the impact that goes, it goes beyond what you can even imagine, I'm sure, because I think of how I'm actively trying to do that as well, or not trying, just and to be in a space though where everyone's like actively participating in that, or actively letting go of, and maybe not. And that's what I think I'm hearing also is like when there was a larger group, there was a dynamic of maybe some people that had like a little resistance still too, but that's all part of it. That shows us all of it because that is all of it. So I love hearing about it, and I'm excited for you all to continue doing this thing because it's really it's impacting further than. I love hearing Ray like your experience of watching this all play out after years of you building this without, realizing where it would go, and who knows where this is going to go, but it's impacting us all for sure. I haven't attended these, but I feel like I've been a part of the learning with y'all, and like I really try to even intentionally let go a little deeper when these things happen, and like think of you all when you're doing karaoke's and shit. I just like, I'm gonna, I try to do it here too. So it's just, I love this conversation, and I appreciate you both.
We appreciate you, Marie. I'm really looking forward to seeing you at one of the retreats. Thank you. I appreciate you joining our call-in show today and being the first one to get in there. So that's always nice. Just not throwing any shade at anybody in the audience.
Yeah, right. Get in here, fuckers. What are you afraid of? No, always great chatting, Marie. Appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you on Patreon later, maybe, and at a retreat at some point for sure. We'll get you there.
It'll happen. See you all later.
All right. Bye, Marie.
That is awesome. It's so funny because thinking about the retreats, there's okay, so this has always been a consideration of mine, because I've always said that you can't just go out there and save the world. Well, I haven't always said that. At one point, I was very much under the idea that you could save the world. But what you start to recognize is that the world is a huge fucking sample. Like when you go and you look at one of the retreats, you see a small group of people. And within that group of people, you have a certain amount of people who are firmly holding on to their idea of themselves, and a certain amount of people who are holding on to the idea of themselves less. Right. But within the retreat environment, you have people who've been working on themselves for quite some time. And so the dynamic is so very different than what we're used to. You have a majority of self-awareness as opposed to a minority portion of self-awareness at these retreats. Whereas in society, it's often the opposite. Right. And so the larger retreats, what you're seeing are the poles, more obviously. You'll have more people at one end and more people at the other end because there's a larger group of people. So you look at the larger event that we just had and the interplay that was happening, and the necessity to maintain balance, the necessity to not get in the way, to not get in there and make it about you, because that's what throws off the balance. Well, you can see how hard it is to do that as a fucking global society. And so it's so important that the majority conversation that is rooted in identity starts to get diluted a little bit by a conversation that's not rooted in identity. These retreats are little pockets. They're like little workshops where we can go and like, right, okay, good. The majority of us here are working on our shit for the most part. And by the majority, I mean all of us to some degree, right? To whatever degree we are capable. But then we go back into the world where people don't even know that's a thing, right? They might be doing it, but they're not doing it actively or as an act of actual deliberate intention, because it's not a part of their common dialogue. They're still trying to figure out who they are and what the answer to life is and all of that fun stuff that goes with that. And so it's just interesting to see how these retreats are kind of like little pools that have less shit in them, right? And then we go back out into the world with a little less shit in us, and we kind of dilute the pool of shit that is otherwise going on all around us. And as such, the pool starts to get clearer because we start to get clearer. And so it's a neat process to watch.
Yeah, well said. And the beauty in that is like there's not a way to do it outside of just not having expectations of yourself. And it's just what's left all the time. It's like there's not something you got to be in order to fulfill, this fucking destiny of the world changing and things shifting and people taking themselves less seriously. It's just like, no, you just stop thinking you got to play into some role. Stop thinking you got to be something. Like, it's, from one perspective, it's the easiest goddamn thing to do in the world. And yet in a world that, pushes against that, and there's all of these reasons to not be that, or things we think we have to be, it's harder to see that. And so just being it is all you can do. Just not expecting yourself to be anything, not having some set idea of what a situation should be like that you're then going to turn it into, is all you can do. Just stop trying to be something. And that's it.
Sounds simple enough, right? I can't imagine why nobody's turned this into a profitable product. Just stop trying to be something. It's like, what the fuck do I need you then? It's like, exactly. Like, help us survive now. We have more people in the queue. Hell yeah. The first of which is Jazz. And for anybody who doesn't know, we have a community Discord. If you haven't joined it yet, go to dualisticunity.com and click on community. It will take you to the Discord. The Discord is totally free, and it is primarily run by Jazz. And we very much appreciate all of the work that goes into it. I know it's been completely revamped. It's been completely redesigned. It's much more functional. There's actually a fucking watch party that's probably going on there right now as we host and record this episode. And so a huge shout out to the community and Jazz as a whole.
Hello,
Jazz, what up?
guys. So
How you
nice to
doing?
see you. I'm
Good to
doing
see you
well.
too.
Yeah, I've been hosting the watch party, and it was like blaring in my ears as Ray was talking and introducing me, and I'm like, what the hell? Okay, let's figure one thing out, and then I'll do this. So we got that figured out. We're here now. Yeah, it's been a while since we talked. Holy, a lot has happened. I'm sure. I'm sure. I don't know. It's like it's a moment to moment thing, right? Like I was appreciating what you were saying about assumptions, Andrew, in the beginning of this episode, because you just don't know what is happening, but you can have assumptions and ideas about what is happening. And yeah, it the past few weeks I have just been fucking going for it, just like doing whatever it is that I want to do, not thinking about it. So many fear considerations will show up, so many, and it's just like still doing it, still doing it, still doing it. And then like, oh, I just love how you all mentioned about the buildup of energy before you do things. And I've been noticing that so much more and more as well when I'm not labeling it, and just noticing how before anything, before I'm going for a run, before I'm going for a workout or anything, there's this buildup of energy, and it's and with that used to come some fear considerations, and they still do come, but it's like the less I pay attention to them or the less power I give them, the less I'm scared of them, the less weight they seem to have. And so it's just about going through that meat grinder of a process over and over and over until I recognize that, wow, yeah, I didn't need to be afraid to be change and just to do whatever it is that I am doing, and don't need to be thinking about it. Don't need to have any assumptions. Don't need to think I have gotten somewhere or am getting somewhere, because holy shit, does that add weight as well. The idea of improvement is one that I'm just like lately looking at as like, wow. Oh. Very unnecessary, and adds a lot of stress to the current unfolding of what is happening, because when you think there's improvement, there's deprovement. Yes, there's deprovement. Indeed. But yeah, it's two sides of the same coin. You never know what is happening, and if you start attaching to any one perception of, because improvement relies on the idea that there's something better. And oh, I really appreciate that Marie asked that question, because that's what I was gonna come in with first. I was like, I was already guns blazing, ready to ask you guys about the retreats or the retreat. Yeah, it was cool to see how that retreat went. But something I was appreciating what you guys were talking about was how the retreats provide an environment where there is so much more self-awareness involved in each person's experience. And so it's what I've been finding really cool is experiencing the other end of that spectrum. It's very interesting. I am learning so much. Oh my God. Because with the idea of improvement comes this idea that I can do something better, which means that someone can do it wrong, someone can do it worse. And at the end of the day, it's about my experience. There's no one else to convince. So it's like, what am I still holding on to in my reflection of you that I just cannot stand right now? And it's this idea that I feel like there's somewhere to get to, and that there's some right way of doing it. There's some right way of doing things. And it's so much unnecessary stress then, because the more considerations you're able to have in any given moment, the more options you see in any given moment. And if you have an idea of what the right thing to do is, then oh my God, that's going to be stressful. That's going to be really stressful. And then you're going to be so scared, and you're going to be so scared of the fear as well. And you're going to be cutting your legs off and hands off. And wow, yeah. And you're just not going to be able to do anything because you're crippled at that point, because you have crippled yourself. And you don't have to. You can just keep moving through it, keep moving forward, not hold on to any assumptions of what is happening. Just keep doing it, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that you know you want to do but aren't doing because you're just so damn afraid to change.
Yeah, well said. I think that the bit about improvement and how funny it is, because it's like combining the improvement and assumptions. Like, what are we improving? I'm improving my assumptions. Like, they're still just assumptions. It's like they're assumptions now. And then as I quote unquote improve things, this just a change in my assumption. And that's all that it is, based on, new evidence that doesn't actually guarantee anything. And so if you are able to realize that like improvement doesn't exist and it's just you continuing to change, then there isn't so much of that side of the concern of things going in any which way. And then you can just kind of show up to things. And without the idea of a thing going in a right way, then of course you can just show up, because there's no way for it to go that's better than it going another way. It's like you're going to be there. You're going to have some influence. You're going to be involved in the situation. You're going to learn something. You're going to grow. You're going to change, as long as you're paying attention to it. But to your point, like if you're holding on to a right way for things to go, a right way for you to be, a right thing for you to get to, a right way for your life to go, there's immediately the wrong way for it to go. And it's literally every other way of it going, other than the one little tiny assumption that you're holding on to. So it's like the odds of things going poorly and going quote unquote wrong are so much higher. Like we're fucking ourselves so hard by holding on to a right way of doing things. Like it doesn't exist. There's no correct way. There's no right way to live. But if you hold on, it's not like a 50-50 thing. Like I think sometimes I assume that it's like the right way and the wrong way. It's like, no, I can pick a right way. That's like one little thing. And then it's literally anything else, which the odds of it being the one thing in infinite potential is zero. The odds of that one thing happening. And so if you're holding on to the right way for things to be, or the right thing to do, or the right person to be, or the right way to act, you're literally always going to be acting the wrong way, basically, unless you curate your assumptions to just like kind of fit that right way. And then it's like you're just changing your assumptions, and then they're just assumptions anyway. So like, what the fuck are you even doing? But as soon as there's that right way, there's all the other ways. And if that one way is the right way, every other way is wrong. And that's a fucking, as we're talking about, it's like, Jesus Christ, that's a brutal way to live. But we do it because it gives us some fucking sense of doing the right thing, and then it allows us to pin ourselves against everyone else and keep feeling better based on that, but also not at all, because we're always doing something wrong.
That's why I tend to love judgment as a whole, because when you're being judged, you can firmly see that that's coming from the right way to live. I always find that just to be delightfully contradictory. Right? It's like there's a right way to live, and obviously it's judging you and myself. It's like, I don't know. I'm kind of seeing a problem with that as a whole. But we don't think about it that way because it feels good. It feels good to think there's a right way until we realize it doesn't feel good at all. Right? Because there's always the threat. There's always the weight. There's always the pressure. And it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the idea of that right way. It wouldn't be there. What you'd be left with is what you can do now. And if it's not based on what the right thing to do is, then it's based on your level of clarity and empathy. And that's why I've always had a problem with the idea of morality as a structure. Because morality as a structure is the right thing to do, regardless of the circumstances. And that's dangerous. There is no intelligence in that whatsoever, but there is a fuck ton of mistake. All of our wars, all of our most damaging acts have been done in the name of what's right. Right? There is no greater evil than that which is done in the name of good.
It looks like I have 25 seconds left. Do you guys have anyone else in the queue?
Indeed, we do.
Okay, I'll hop on out of here then, and I'm looking forward to seeing who else is in here. Good talk, guys.
Likewise.
We look forward
Always
to
great
seeing
chat.
you on Patreon.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. I'll be on after this one, so for sure. I'm looking. Peace and love and empathy
Bye, Jazz.
and hatred as well, all of it.
Yes.
That's right. It informs it all.
Anger.
Fuck yeah. Fuck you all. And we love you. Absolutely. Just want to say again, shout out to everybody on Discord right now. We really appreciate the fact that you are all here and working on yourselves, and you choose to do so in our company. It's much appreciated, because you don't have to. And that's the whole kind of point is that regardless of what you were doing before you found Dualistic Unity, you've always been doing the work. It's just that we've had the good fortune to run across you while you do so. And so now we can all talk about the work that we're doing. And that work is, again, making this feel less like work at the end of the day. But I'm going to pass it over to Andrew. And then we have somebody in the queue that I'm anxious to talk to, because I know she's been just fucking kicking ass in terms of recording episodes that'll be coming out in season 6.
Fuck yeah. I'm excited to chat. So I don't really have much to add. I say we just get her on in here. Amanda, what is up?
That's a good idea. Let's just move it along. Stop filling the airspace for sure.
But yeah, no, and it's like, because even when we're not, like, when we feel like we're not, doing the quote unquote right thing, it's like we're building context, we're gaining empathy for certain experiences, digging into shit so that we understand, oh, that's shit right there, which is good too. Amanda, what's up? How you doing?
What's up? Hi guys. I tried to get in earlier, but I must have clicked the link too early, because it said like October 31st. So I'm just sitting in the October 31st waiting room. And then I hear you guys talking shit about people not jumping into the call. It's like, God damn it, I'm trying, sir. And then I was like, all right, let's just do it again, copy and paste. I already knew what the steps were. So it just was like, it's all right. I'll get to talk shit in person when I get on the call. And that's a great treat. Oh my God. No, but I've been loving listening to Marie and Jazz and you guys earlier on the live, just chatting about like the way that my brain was translating it was like, I could hear like the assumption is the same in all self-criticisms. And the assumption is that I know better and what's better didn't happen. and I'm just so mad about that. And I just think that is just delightfully absurd, because there's no way that I know what's best. So when I assume that things should have been differently, that I should have made a different choice, that something is not what's best for me, it's like, excuse me, what do you mean it's not what's best? It's what's happening, and what's happening is available, and what's available is I can work with, but I can't work with what didn't happen. Like that just seems crazy. It's like I'm building a house and we have wood, but it should be concrete. But there's no concrete right now, and I won't build unless I have concrete. But there's fucking wood right there. Like I could build something, I could sell the wood, we could do something with it, but the wood is what actually I need to transform into concrete, right? So even if I'm so upset that I don't have the right materials, it's like I still have to use the materials that are available to get what's currently unavailable. And until I have what's unavailable, and that is within a grasp that I can actually use it with, then I can get to this place that I think is best. But I love that within all criticisms, it's the same assumption that I know what's best and that it didn't happen and that it's my fault.
Yeah, well said. It's so funny how quick we are to make that assumption too. Like in moment to moment to moment, we could be like, oh yeah, that was the wrong thing to do because I have some idea of the right thing. And sometimes I won't even have an idea of the right thing to do. It's just, this must be wrong because at least I can be sure of something. And like, I'll trade the certainty for the reality of what's going on, like what's actually happening. Like, oh gosh, it's so funny how we try to measure things moment to moment too. Like there's no ability to measure something. It has to be relative to something else. But if all there is just this experience right now, like there's not another experience to measure it against. Like you're always just going through being reality right now. There's not a comparative thing that you could come up with until you start making shit up to compare it to. And that allows you to then measure it. But like, as we're speaking right now, like as this episode's going, there's no way for one episode to be better than another, one situation to be better than another, one conversation, one interaction, one way of doing something to be better than another. It's just, that's just what happened. Like they're all different. They're all changed. That's just what's going on. You're just going on. You're just what's happening. Like it's so funny how when you pull back a little bit, it's like, yeah, it's always just shit's going on. And like, until you start coming up with some other ideas of things or assumptions about things, assumptions about the right way, or assumptions about how something else went without actually being able to point to that either, it's just like everything's kind of in that neutral spot. And even neutral isn't it, because that implies that there's like some spectrum for it to be in the middle of. It's just like, it's just uniquely itself. And like, you can just be that. And then there's not so much to like grab onto, there's not so much of an ability to compare, but then you're kind of free from that thing. And then there's nothing holding you back from doing shit. Cause like, if there's nothing to compare it to, you're always just doing your best as you go through stuff. Like things continue to change as you do it. It's like time and attention. You keep giving something time and attention. Something continues to change in a certain direction, but it's not even necessarily a better direction. And there's just this inherent inability to measure something. And because I just want to measure it, I'll just make up shit to measure it against, which is funny.
It gives me something to do. And it gives me the feeling like I'm doing something. Again, that's really it. Like if there is control, there's a me to measure in terms of my value, in terms of how well I am establishing that control, in terms of how much control I have. All right. So immediately control creates the me. So there's a dual payoff. Not only do we get to feel like we're doing something, we get to feel like there's a someone that we can be while we're doing that thing that we can work on and improve on and judge and fucking whip into shape, giving us even more to control. And so it becomes just this mental exercise and not admitting that we're part of everything else that's happening. It's really all it is just we just refuse to go, right, I'm not in control. Because if I'm not in control, then I can't measure my value accordingly. So there's nothing except that giant question mark, right? But in that is freedom and potential, right? Because the idea of control is also limiting. Like as soon as you must have a certain thing, you are disregarding everything else that may influence your life in a way that you don't see. You're immediately limiting what can happen in your life according to your preferences and what you assume is correct. And that is the cost of control, is that it's blind. It's blind to everything outside of what it needs. Everything outside of what it's decided is the right way. And that is the biggest problem with control, is that it makes the assumption for its own survival. And that survival is the survival of the fictional you in your battle against God, as it were. This is why I find it really funny, because Christians or people who tend to believe in God are in fact investing in control, whether they realize it or not. They're like, well, I have faith in God. Well, that's a sense of control. You have faith in some intelligence taking care of things. That's a sense of control. If you listen to what I'm saying there's a sense of control there. And the reason that you hold on to that is because you're terrified of letting go. And so what you're holding on to is the fiction that keeps you from the very God that you claim to believe in. And that's the kick in the teeth about it, is the fact that faith can't be in something, or that's not faith. All right. So any idea of God is not God. Any faith in anything is a sense of control, even a faith in yourself. Because immediately I'm like, have faith in yourself. You're like, okay, well, I got to have an idea of what that is. You'll immediately form an idea of what you are. Have faith in yourself. Immediately you're like, well, who am I? And that's when you're fucked. It's just have faith. Just have faith. It's not in something. Just move forward. And you will adapt to each and every moment because you're a part of it. You don't have to have control to be a part of each and every moment. They couldn't happen without you. But you can distort that fucking moment by thinking you can be in control and disregarding everything else that's informing you in that moment.
Absolutely. It is it was making me think about the concept of losing and how I only feel like I lose if I assume that I should have gotten what I didn't end up getting, you know, and the same thing with like feeling like you want to judge a past choice or you want to judge a past result that you got. And it's like things are just always here, right? And what's here is what I can work with. And when I think that I lost, it's only because I have this idea that what's here is not enough. And I think that now that life feels perfect because I don't want to change it. And so my idea and definition of perfection was very different. And before it was, I needed reality to match my idea, my blueprints. And now I'm realizing that the moments in life that felt perfect 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago are all moments that I didn't want to change, right? So I was in that moment and it was like, wow, this feels so perfect. And it felt so perfect because I didn't want to change it into anything else. And what I'm feeling now is that life feels perfect and it does not match any blueprints that I had. And that's okay. I'm appreciating that I don't want to change it because I don't need what's unavailable. I don't need even what's available to me now. But I'm appreciating that with what's available, I can do something with it. And that feels exciting. And that has really nothing to do with my idea because it's just what's available is just what's available, right? Like, I don't need to have a blueprint for what's available. And it feels like utter perfection, even though like I've been losing my shit and crying lately. And I feel like, you know, like an exposed nerve. And my final thought is just that, am I really an exposed nerve or am I just finally not desperately trying to cover the raw experience of existence with my preferences? Is it that I'm really exposed or that I'm just finally not trying to cover up?
Finally not trying to be anything other than just what you show up as when you're not trying to be something, right? That was really well said. I like that a lot because we can maintain the perspective of there being, you know, becoming this exposed nerve. And it's like, no, it's what you are. You're just not keeping things at bay as much. You're not suppressing or holding things back, or your perspectives or your thoughts or whatever it may be. You know, you're willing to just be that without so many considerations and thoughts about what that should be. You know, it's what's left. But it's always a blast chatting, Amanda. I look forward to a Patreon call after this and, you know, the next time we chat.
Absolutely. And as a shout out, I just want to mention that, of course, Amanda and Jackie are hosting episodes of Dualistic Unity Real every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's a live stream. It goes for like an hour and a bit, basically as long as they feel like talking. It's been going really, really well. I've really enjoyed the episodes that have been released. We just released episode 4 earlier today, so you can check that out on the podcast. And of course, as we go into season 6, you're going to hear an episode from them every week, which is going to be very exciting.
Fuck yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I'll see everyone in the Patreon call afterwards and excited to share more and continue the conversation with Jackie because she is a blast. And so it's been a lot of fun. And I'm glad we get to share that fun with all of you.
Oh, we appreciate you doing so for sure. And of course, again, we'll see you on Patreon at the end of this. We do have somebody else in the queue, which I'm very excited to connect with. This is an individual that we talk to rather frequently. We just actually hung out with him for 9 days in the Netherlands. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Everybody is kind of coming back and processing everything that went on in the Netherlands, and I know we had a good conversation about this over the last couple of days. So this is going to be great. It's good to see Levi, as always.
Oh yeah, Levi, what is up, dude? There he is.
Hey guys.
What's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you.
Hey, hey. I was watching like the live earlier, and yeah, it's kind of late there, so I fell asleep and just basically been sleeping for like, I don't know, an hour or two, and I just woke up and I was like, yeah, the last thing I want to do is kind of go live, you know, feeling like this, and then I kind of this your whole like morning video just flashed in my head, Andrew. Like I'm like, okay, that's probably yeah, even worse. I'll just jump in here. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been trying to find this link for the last, I don't know, 20 minutes or something. So I'm just not 100% there. But anyway, great to be here. Yeah, just get back from the retreat with you guys. Had a hell of an experience there. Yeah, and it's been quite a week. I don't know. I heard you guys talking about like this, I don't know, whatever the hell was happening, kind of in more of a like the sense of the group just kind of working together somehow, kind of, I don't know, oh, kind of looking out for each other, kind of just working out in such a beautiful way. And yeah, I don't know, it was incredible to see and be a part of. So it's yeah, I don't know, it also like brings in, I just heard, I don't know, I think Amanda talking about like how we're trying to be something, like in general, like trying to be something other than we are, because we somehow think that's such a great idea, and somehow better than whatever we like naturally would be, you know. And yeah, I think that's just such a nice place to kind of see that in other people, how it's like just the more people just let go of all these things like we think we should be doing, people are just, I don't know, just it's beautiful. I don't know, I feel I'm just rambling on now, but it was pretty cool to see. Yeah.
I agree. It was awesome to see. It's always interesting to witness. I mean, that's the thing is I'm a very skeptical person. I've always been a very skeptical person. I'm not one for belief. I don't want to believe in anything. And so for me, I'm always very careful not to cherry pick things. Like when I see things, I'm just like, yeah, it could be that, but I don't necessarily know. It's just, I've been doing that for so long that after a while, you're like, yeah, that shit's actually happening. Like there is actually an interplay of mentalities every time people get together. And it really is dependent on how much of themselves they're holding on to about how much they get out of that interplay. And so it was so much fun for me to watch. But for you, for example, you and I have been talking on Patreon for a while, and I've seen you go through the process of questioning the fuck out of yourself, but also questioning the fuck out of everything that we're ever talking about. And so you come to the retreat, this is your second retreat, with all of that work and all of those edges already torn down, a willingness to be there, a willingness to see, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, let's just find out. I'm going to participate and we'll make the most of it. And that's the mentality. And that is what plays into this all working out. But I can see how much of a process led to you getting there. And if you think about all the processes of everybody else that got there, it's beautiful. It's fucking miraculous. You're like, wow. And all we had to do was put a fucking lodge together for us all to go to. And the rest, we knew what to do. We knew how to be together because we were learning how to be with ourselves. So it was legitimately, it's always mind blowing to me. It's something that always catches me. And so I very much share your feeling of just kind of getting out of there and going, I don't even know how to fucking put that into words, because I've been trying to put this into words since the first retreat. And it's very difficult to do because you're pointing out something that's obvious on the one hand, and on the other hand, absolutely mystical in watching it play out because it seems almost effortless. And the less effort goes into it, the more it seems to work out. And that contradicts everything that we think most of the time. Because again, we're invested in control. We're like, no, we got to have a plan. We need to know what we're going to do at 3, 4, 5, 6 p.m. We're going to have dinner. It's going to be this, and everybody's got expectations of that. And then, of course, with the expectation comes disappointment, right? Like there's so much that goes into just being and adapting moment to moment to moment. So yeah, it's fucking jarring, man. It's jarring, but on the same token, it makes me see a world of possibilities for our species as a whole if we can just get out of the way. And that just requires one of us to get out of the way. You.
Yeah, there really is like a seamlessness to it just from being out of the way. And how often, like thinking about that, like how it could be seamless just from there being a lack of trying to be something, trying to control things. Like I would always think of seamlessness as the perfect plan. Like there's a perfect way of doing it, perfect structure, perfect, over these retreats, we're figuring out the best structure to make it into what it is. And that's the other side of the spectrum. That's the extreme end of ultimate control, is being able to come to this perfect point where we do all the right things. And it's the most fucking rigid, tense way you could possibly do things, trying to maintain this perfect seamlessness. And it's like, you got to fit everything into the proper notches and edges and everything, like all the puzzle pieces have to go together perfectly. And all we're doing is recognizing that they already are, when I don't have so much of a fucking idea of what that is. Like it's the baseline of my experience is that seamless sort of perfection, like recognizing that we're all just cells in a body playing out. Like there's a seamlessness when you don't have some fucking idea of what you should be doing and are just doing, just not maintaining so many rigid structures and ideas. And so it's cool to just realize that it really is like the easiest way to be. It doesn't mean that it's comfortable, but it's like everything's always has some degree of discomfort to it. It's like, do you want to let go of these assumptions about what you think you should be and then just be left with what you are, not having to be something? And like that discomfort of not having the rigidity of what you should be and needing to maintain that? Or do you want to have the discomfort of trying to constantly maintain some narrative, some structure, some idea, some right way of doing it? And so that's the beauty with the retreats, is we don't go into it with some idea, and anyone who does is like, you're left with your stuff. Like, why do you have expectations? So it's really cool to see. And it was fucking awesome in the Netherlands to hang and chat with you, Levi, having been to a retreat before. Like seeing you really just open up and let loose and let go was fucking inspiring, man. It was incredible. And yeah, I always love hanging with you.
I also want to throw in, because this is something that I don't know if you're aware of or not, but during the retreat, several of the guests expressed how calming of a presence you had on them, how they felt like they could just relax and be themselves around you, that there was no requirement that you had of them. There was no pushing and pulling whatsoever, that you were, in fact, a very enlightening force, just in the fact that you were making the most of your own moment and that you were so open with everybody. And so I just wanted to mention that, because I know often we have a narrative, like, I don't know if the work I'm doing is necessarily doing anything or not, or if it's even noticeable. It's noticeable. It's absolutely noticeable. And it was noticeable by a lot of people there who were exposed to both, mentalities that were still trying to look for something and those that were not. So I appreciate you being there, man. If it wasn't for you, the retreat just wouldn't have went as well as it did.
Yeah, I mean that's of course cool. It's cool to hear, but it's like it's just what was also coming back to me from what felt like everyone. So it's I don't know. And it's like, it's funny, like this, what you say, like with this calming presence and all that. It's like, that's kind of like, kind of everything I've resisted my whole life, more or less. You know what I mean? I was like, always like, like putting like everyone who's like very outspoken and, up on a pedestal, and and I of course still appreciate that, but and sometimes I can feel that I am that, and but it's like I've always kind of like like discounted like what maybe I don't know that I'm more naturally or not or whatever. But anyway, it's cool to hear, and it's also cool to see like how maybe I also appreciate like more I don't know, more of me as well during just experiencing all of this. So yeah, it's nice. I really yeah, it's been a blast hanging out at the retreats for sure. It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I resonate with you more than you may realize, dude, because I've had the same sort of thoughts throughout most of my life. And if I wanted to delve into it, I could certainly start crying right now, but I'm not going to do that because I had that narrative too for a very, very long time that I'm, oh, that calm and presence. No, you got to be, you got to be extroverted and outspoken, and you got to be, always expressing all of these things and doing this more and doing that more and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no. And when you realize that whatever side you fall on, tip or whatever's, I don't know, more naturally comfortable to you, start noticing yourself creeping in to the other side of things because you're not trying to be something, because someone on the other side who, sees someone who's more calm and they're like, I wish I could be more calm. I feel like I'm always going crazy and berserk and can't shut up or whatever. It's like they crave that side. And so it's so funny how like we're craving the side that we feel like we shouldn't be on. And yet, as you settle into that, that's when you relax. And that's when things just have a way of playing out so much more seamlessly. And it's like, if you're good with you, then who are you trying to be good for? And it's like people are already appreciating you for exactly what you are. Why are you trying to be something else? Why am I trying to be something else? Why do I assume that I should be? So yeah, I love to hear it, man. And you were certainly very, very calming and grounding for me in a lot of ways. And yeah, I resonate a lot.
Yeah. And I want to mention again, as much as you have that calming force, it's selective too. You definitely were fucking kicking ass at karaoke, man. I got to admit, you've been to 2 retreats, and each and every time you come to the retreat, you just keep getting better and better, just getting up there and having fucking fun with it. So it really is just, there is no set Levi. There's no Levi that's calming and no Levi that's out there fucking invigorating the masses. There's just what you are, depending on the moment you're in and what you want to do with it. Right? None of it's self-defining. It all just comes down to choice. And sometimes that choice may not feel like choice because you're adapting to somebody else. Like at the retreat, for example, a lot of people said that you were calming. Why? Well, because they needed that. That's what they were looking for. And you were there playing that role. For somebody else who was looking for a good laugh, like for me, for example, I went outside to smoke a joint looking for a good laugh. You were there and we had a fucking great time. Right? So it really just comes down to the person that you're talking to and the moment that you're in and your willingness to adapt fluidly to the requirements of that moment, not based on your preferences, but based on your willingness to just let it happen. So it's appreciated, man, for sure.
Yeah. Last thing I definitely appreciate, like with the karaoke, because I would, pass off the mic to you, like whether you said it or not, I'm pretty sure you did say it a few times, just like getting up there and you're just like, fuck it. and just like jumped in and just like fucking let go. And I resonate a lot with that too, because every retreat I've felt a little more comfortable just fucking doing it and like not maintaining some idea of how it should go or how I should be or what I gotta like subdue or hold back. It's like, fuck it. I'm here. Might as well make the most of it and have some fucking fun with it. And it was yes, it was fucking awesome. Awesome to see that, man.
Yeah, those karaoke's, I mean, they kind of, I feel it's like the metaphor for life, just that whole thing going on there with just letting go, and just like the more you let go, the more fun you have with whatever you're doing. And I think that's just so true everywhere. And also, like, I just noticed from the other side, just like the more I kind of got out of my head, the more I like enjoy the show from others as well. It was like, and I feel that's also so true, like in real life or whatever. It's just, when I get out of my way, it's like, okay, what's happening in front of me here? Like, what are kind of they going through, and kind of experiencing things kind of from other people in a high degree. And I think that just made the whole evening more enjoyable with, like, I kind of felt like I was there with other people as well, and I don't know, it's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun with the karaoke, and it's just, I also feel like myself letting go more and more, but it's like, it's not because Levi is happy with it, it's just, yeah, it's just because why not? So, yeah. Yeah.
It was awesome. We appreciate you being here, Levi. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for calling in. And I hope we'll see you in the Patreon group, but I understand it's the wee hours of the day for you.
Yeah.
So if you're not there, no worries. But everybody who wants to connect with Levi, join us on Patreon if you can. Any day of the week, he tends to be there sometimes. And as always, offers us insights and tales from the harrowing experience of questioning yourself. I appreciate your honesty, man. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Always a blast chatting. Talk to you soon, man. All right. Yeah, that was love Levi.
It's been fun. It's nice. Well, that's the thing. Like, I was saying this at the retreat, but it added a certain level of depth, not just to listen to retreat guests who were singing songs that were meaningful, not just meaningful personally, but meaningful like on a conscious level in terms of their relationship with reality, but also to hear how much progress they've made in their own journey to get to the point where they could sing those songs, right? To actually get a feel for how much work and time and courage and faith went into just going up there and grabbing the mic, not just listening to the song itself, but listening to that person expressing who they are. Right? There was a point at the retreat where everybody was more or less just celebrating the fact that they could express themselves. And that is the best reason to celebrate existence. That's really what it is. Each moment is a celebration in that it's a totally new moment. And you can find joy in that. And I was having this conversation with somebody recently because we were talking about how when you are really deep in the present and not in your mind, there's so much of an emotional spectrum. It feels like, just a slight teeter to the right or teeter to the left, and you're either going towards tears of joy or tears of sorrow. And that feeling becomes immense the more you sink into what you are here and now. And it comes from the two perspectives of what's happening in each and every moment, which is that each moment is a world of potential. And on the same token, will never happen again. And so each moment has that spectrum of sorrow and joy, of loss and gain. And that's the dualistic perspective of reality. And everything comes down to that in each and every moment, especially the closer you get to the present, because the more you start to deal with what it is to be eternal. And that is the ongoing decision in our life. Joy at what can come, or pain at what has lost, or at what has passed. And as long as you don't choose one or the other, you get both. And you get to be informed by both. And with that comes more of reality, more of awareness. But that's the point, is that you're balancing. You're balancing in the middle of both perspectives, aware that neither perspective is the truth. The truth is what remains. But both perspectives are a part of that. And so as long as you don't grasp to one or the other, you just continue to become more and more aware of how much you are. And that informs what you do. It informs your decisions. It informs how you act. It informs how you perceive everything that happens. But as soon as you get caught on one or the other, you're back in the loop, the pendulum swinging. Right? As soon as you're trying to focus on joy, you start running away from fear. As soon as you start focusing on fear, you start running towards joy. It's always the pendulum swing until you recognize that both are just perceptions of what's happening. The alternative is the fire of existence now.
It's good timing for this edible to be hitting me right now, because Jesus Christ, dude, that was I'm feeling like that whole spectrum right now is like right as you're closing off. I'm like, all right, we're gonna hold that back so we can actually say some words here. But because it's like we think about birth and death on this whole thing, like think about our life. We're born one day, we die one day, and then we live in between. But like we're experiencing birth and death moment to moment. right? Like the birth of a new moment, the death of the moment. And it's like it just, as you were talking, it all just like compressed for me very, very quickly. And it was like, oh, birth and death isn't something that we experience once each. It's like we experience it at all times, every moment, forever. And so that, like, it's so interesting how we maintain that perspective of birth and death as being just these singular experiences. Like, we're born one day and we die another. It's like, and if you're not maintaining so much of an idea, or if you are maintaining, like, that idea that I have right now just died, and now it's like I'm trying to maintain an existing idea, but I don't have to. And I'm willing to realize that birth and death are happening moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, like both of them, like you're saying, like the duality of being born anew and dying at the same exact time. It's like, it's me maintaining any idea that it's not happening in that way. And it's like, so much of the weight I experience is the desire to maintain the perspective that it's not always happening. It's like, no, I'm alive and on this timeline. And it's like, no, that idea is dying. What's the Krishnamurti talks about, like, forgetting everything you know, moment to moment, something like that. And it's being willing to do that and not trying to maintain it. And how often we'll, like, look back, be nostalgic and look back to the past, or be hopeful and look towards the future. And it's just ways to, like, I don't know, disregard my experience. Like, it's kind of sad to hold on to those things, because it's just another way to miss your life, like miss reality that's happening right now, moment to moment, like that's being born and dying. Like, I've experienced an infinite number of deaths in my life already, in life as life, and I've been born anew an equal amount of infinite number of times. There's not even a way to conceptualize that momentary death and rebirth, because it's like they're both constantly happening seamlessly, moment to moment. And I can just keep paying attention to what's actually real, and everything outside of that experience, the thing that I think died, the thing that I think's being born, isn't even the thing that it is. I can try and maintain those ideas too, like, oh, what's been lost, what's being gained, but I'm not really losing or gaining anything besides my resistance to just being it right now. Like, and I'm fighting that perspective that there is something to maintain, that there is something that's staying alive through it all. And it's like, yeah, it's you, but not the fucking assumptions that you're making about what the fuck that means. It's just you.
Isn't it interesting? And the symbolism is there all the time. I mean, when you look at theater, for example, the two masks that you see are suffering and comedy, right? Tragedy and comedy. Because those are the two attitudes towards existence. Right? And it really is a matter of perspective. I mean, it was Charlie Chaplin who was saying, zoom in for the drama, zoom out for the comedy. And that's very much what we do in our own lives. We start focusing on the character, all of a sudden there's the drama, right? We zoom out a little bit and see how the character's interplaying with everything else. There's the comedy. Right. And so it's really just an attitude towards each and every moment, but that's what we are, is the moment. We get so caught up in the idea of birth and death that, as you said, we miss the fact that it's happening all the time. And yet it's so obvious that it's in a fucking song. Closing time, semisonic, right? Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Right. This is something that we're aware of. It's been mentioned numerous times in much of our literature and everything else. One thing leads to another. What we call cause and effect is just the death of something and the birth of something else. Right. But that's just an illusion, because, again, it's just ongoing change in the here and now. Right. And what's even worse is that the thing that has passed, quote unquote, has passed, is always going to exist within potential. That moment is always going to be a present, which means it isn't lost at all, but the experience of it is. Right? Or rather, it's moved past. So I wanted to give a shout out because I know somebody was asking in the comments section. I've responded a number of times, but I don't know if it's come through. You can participate in this call-in show by going to dualisticunity.com/live. Now, I realize that we are coming to the end of the call-in show very, very, very shortly here. So I'm going to move on to the next guest, and we're going to continue on with the conversation. If you didn't get a chance to participate today, I am sorry, but we will be back in 2 weeks for another call-in show. And then there's a roundtable next week that you can join just by being a tier 2 or a tier 3 supporter on Patreon. That said, Jazz is back in the queue.
Oh, it is me. Holy shit.
Indeed it is.
It is you, whatever that means. Welcome back.
Yep, you're
Where'd
on
you
mute. Yep. Okay, hold on. Technical difficulties. See, that's what happens. You weren't expecting us to call you, and then bam! This is how things fucking work.
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all. But hell yeah, we're back. I was loving what you guys were talking about in regards to the spectrum, ends of the spectrum, because going through this entire process the past few weeks of just going through it, going through whatever it is that I'm going through, doing whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm noticing how whatever I'm doing, it's never my idea of what I think is going to happen is never even like close to what actually ends up happening. There's so much nuance and so much detail and so much color in everything that unfolds. And before it unfolds, I'll just like think about it. And the thoughts are always like such snapshots. And the ones that I'm giving way to, which is obviously the ones that are pertinent to this conversation because I'm giving way to them, is the ones that are either I'm scared of or the ones that I'm wanting to get to. And so it's so crazy how I can, wow, that's interesting. As I was saying that, I wanted to take the conversation in a direction where I thought I should be taking it. Fuck that noise. I have no idea where I'll take this conversation. I will rebel the shit out of any idea of where I should be taking this.
Lead the way.
On a moment-to-moment basis, sir. As I was watching you guys talk on the call, I was also thinking about how I wanted to mention Discord has been so much fucking fun, like lately. It's been so much fun. It's been getting so much more fun than the previous time that I was on the call-in show where I was like so stressed. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like there's so much stuff. And now I'm just like, there's going back to that idea of not knowing where things are going or not knowing what the right thing is. I'm just, oh, there's so much more output when I'm not thinking about it. There's so much that is happening and I'm not thinking about it and it's just happening. And yeah, like I'm kind of surprised how much there's happening now, but I always like resist the urge to be surprised because this is what would have been happening if I weren't just holding myself back. Oh my God, I hold myself back so much. It's crazy. It's interesting because it's like, it feels like somewhat of a buffer between like what it would look like if I was just like, I don't know, just doing and not thinking about what I'm doing. And the more that I'm doing, the less thinking there's happening, but still there's thinking. But it's like interesting how the less I think, the more involved I am with whatever is happening. And so with the Discord, it's been really fun to just create so many events. Like we have a freaking Dungeons and Dragons club going on now. And we have a book club going on that we're just starting. We're starting the first book called The Book of Life by Peter Kingsley, I think. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what kind of discussions. Oh my God. Oh, the first event we had, the psychedelic movie night that we did for DU, and we watched Ink. So good. So good. That movie was incredible. That movie itself was incredible, just like looking at how dreams can form. Oh, yeah. Just looking at how they portrayed dreams and different experiences of consciousness through the visuals and through the contrast and saturation of the colors. And oh yeah, there was so much happening in that movie. And I just loved the conversation that happened afterwards regarding everything that happened in the movie, and like looking at your guys' movie review as well. Yeah, we have an awesome group of people, and it's just really, really fun to be organizing all of these things. And we have an upcoming movie night as well this Saturday, where we're going to be watching Kung Fu Panda, which I'm again excited for.
That is dope. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love the fact that you're largely covering things that we've discussed. Kung Fu Panda, we were just talking about yesterday. It's absolutely one of my favorite movies in terms of, there are no coincidences. And there are no coincidences because there is no disconnection. That's really the insight. Like, there are no coincidences because everything is connected. Coincidence really does require the perspective of division. Things have to be just randomly fucking rolling around for coincidences to happen. But otherwise, it's all just the action of one thing all the time. And so, of course, there's synchronicity. Of course, things are going to tie together. And so it's a fantastic movie. But I'm excited to hear that, because I know the Discord, like everything, is in active faith. I mean, you're moving forward, figuring shit out, learning more about it, but it's also based on everybody who's there and what they do with the Discord. Right. And so it's not just the technical elements of it, but it's also being supportive. It's also just, understanding. And sometimes it's telling people, all right, that's enough. Time to shut the fuck up for a bit and do some self-reflection. And you can do that. That's important to do, especially as an administrator. Every once in a while, just drop an STFU like, hey, it is important to recognize that as much as you can use this Discord to discuss things, doing so can also be an addiction. You can also use that discussion to get out of actual action. An application. And I know that right now there is somebody who tends to come onto the Discord and just hammer the general thread. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that is something that you have the right to say, hey, I think that this Discord is actually going to be better used by you if you just fuck off for a bit, with love, understanding that at this point you're using us as a crutch. And so being the Discord administrator isn't unlike being a life coach to some degree. You don't have to be in there giving advice, but you do have to have some sensitivity for where people are in their journey. And that's why I was very grateful that you decided to take on the Discord for us, because I know I have absolute faith in your ability to discern that.
Yeah, I have absolutely no problem telling someone off. It's been interesting because I definitely resonate with using Discord or the conversation as a crutch, like talking about it, which is why I have been focusing mostly for now, just like not reading as much of the text messages and just focusing on the events and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot that can happen when you're just using it as a crutch and just running to something for an answer and not doing the work that you can be doing in your own life, because that's what I've been learning lately, is that I am ultimately responsible for everything that's happening in my life. And if I'm not making my own meals, if I'm not, if I'm not excited to get up at all, like if I'm just in bed all day, like why is that? And yeah, it's interesting to see how much fear can hold you back, but letting go of those shackles where you are allowing fear to dictate what you're doing. Because oh my God. Yesterday, I was just like going through a process where I was like questioning if I wanted to be working out, because I have been getting into a routine now, because I have never done routines before. And it's like so fucking scary for me to just get into a routine of doing something on the same day. Even work was like a struggle for me. So like doing this is like very beneficial for me, just like doing a routine of stuff. And yeah, I was noticing how there was this fear that was coming up then around, oh, like if I'm going to be working out, do I really want to be doing this? Like it's like 3 days a week, or like, do I want to, like, then I went online and like best, like a list of hobbies. I go through all 1,000 hobbies a person can have, seeing if there's better ones. I finished the list, and then at the end, I'm like, yeah, nope, this I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. It's like I am not doing, and it's so interesting because I always had this idea that I am doing things for the purpose of getting somewhere. And so the less it's been about that, the more I'm just enjoying whatever it is that I'm doing. And so working out, stretching, like all of running, all of these things that I'm doing, it's not for anything. I'm just doing it because I can do something, and this is what I'm doing. And it seems appropriate for where I'm at right now in terms of what I want to prioritize, like stretching. I want to prioritize, just I think it's something that Ray has drilled into my head as well through the retreats about how the importance of this experience in this meat suit. And yeah, I've appreciated that and taken lessons from that in regards to just fixing my posture. Like if my back is hurting all day, then I can't really do anything. So stretching is part of that. And yeah, I'm always just doing whatever is appropriate for what is happening. And so not needing to second guess that, because the second guess is just another fear consideration based off of the recognition that I have no control, and I just am doing things because I can do them. Like because there's no carrot at the end of this road, it's like, then why am I doing this? Oh, right, there's no carrot at the end of any road. Now it's just about doing whatever it is that I'm doing without any certainty of anything, and it's just letting loose into that. And yeah, it's all of this, like Discord and everything that I'm doing with I've been like getting more into interview process as well lately. Like Patreon call is gonna be awesome, but yeah, just getting into that entire process of interviewing as well and not making that about myself has allowed me to go into interviews just not even necessarily wanting a job, like actually really not wanting a job sometimes, the job that I'm interviewing for, but just going through that process because it's interesting to see, like it's interesting to go through, and I don't know what will come of it. I'm just wanting to have the conversation that we'll have, and I will learn something for sure, and they will learn something for sure. And yeah, it's just cool process to go through. And so there's so much less weight when I'm going through it in that mentality, because interviews were something that used to make me really anxious, and the preparation for that as well used to make me insanely anxious as well. But yeah, it's it's been so much more fun allowing myself to fail exceedingly badly by the metrics that I would have considered like 8 months ago, frankly. And just like being like, wow, that's amazing, I have changed. It has felt like it. It's felt like there's so much processing that unfolded. And yeah, it's cool to be able to appreciate whatever is happening without feeling like I need to label it into anything.
Well said. Yeah, I'm excited for this Patreon call too, because it's gonna be a lot of fun. All sorts of stuff, and how often we're like, I was talking with someone. I'll share more on the Patreon call, but just about like interests and like how you can get into something just for yourself, but sometimes the consideration of like, well, am I going to be interesting to someone else, and doing something in order to like build this aura or persona of yourself, and like, oh, I'm gonna dig into this so that I have something interesting to talk about. It's like, I catch myself doing that sometimes. Like, no, you can just get into it, because so much of, what we do and is expression. It's like outward expression. It's not as much taking in. Sometimes we're always doing both, of course, but yeah, it's like just doing it for you because you're interested in it. And the more interested in things you are, the more interesting you then become. But it's not to be interesting, it's just naturally kind of how it goes, like both sides, kind of like the tree growing. The roots dig deeper as you get interested, and then the interestingness is a byproduct of the interest that you show, the reality, really, and just being willing to dig into stuff and learn. So yeah, Jazz, always a great time having you on here, and even better when it's twice. But we'll talk to you soon on Patreon.
Hell yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. This was awesome.
Hi, Jess.
I'm always very excited by the Discord, admittedly, because I don't know anything about Discord. Like we started it. We're just like, this is a thing. Cool. Let's create that. And then we did some channels and we didn't know what to do with it after that. And we just kind of left it for the community to decide what it was going to become. I mean, it's very much like the retreats, the Patreon calls. I mean, fuck, even the podcast, admittedly, because I mean, so much of what we talk about is informed by our conversations with everybody else. You know, so I really enjoy how all of this is a collective expression. It's really what it is. It's just a collective expression, but it's an expression with awareness, or at least with awareness being the cornerstone of what's happening in the community and in DU as a whole. Express yourself. Just don't be a selfish prick about it. Right. And then everybody else can enjoy that expression, or at least learn from that expression, can express something based on what they've taken away from it. Like, it's just expression and influence, unless somebody is being a selfish prick about it. Right. And so that's really just the lesson. And then if somebody is being a selfish prick about it, it's important that everybody expresses that they're being a selfish prick about it with love and empathy, not necessarily judgment, but just like, hey, have you recognized how selfishly prickish you're being? Because it might be more obvious than you're comfortable admitting. Right. And there's no judgment in that. We've all had those selfish, prickish moments, you know, sometimes several times a day, and that's okay. But it really is just being willing to express yourself, understanding that the only thing that really gets in our way is trying to prove something about ourselves, trying to express some need rather than addressing that need, and then expressing things for the love of doing so.
Well said. And it's good for people to recognize when they're being a selfish prick, because sometimes you don't know what you're not aware of. So you're doing someone a service when you let them know. Like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that. All right. Thanks for the heads up. Appreciate that. I'll take that in and I will do with it what I will. But yeah, it's funny how quick we can get caught up in those types of things and not even realize it. So, you know, eventually reality comes a knocking, right? You can only get away with that shit for so long, because before it starts being detrimental to your own experience. And then even a selfish person is going to, when it starts impacting their experience, like, all right, maybe it is time to shift, because they're just like left with themselves looking around like, why is no one here? Oh yeah, because I was being that. It's kind of like when someone's got something in their tooth. Maybe it's not super comfortable to tell them they got something, but they always appreciate it, unless they're super insecure, and then they like somehow get mad at you for doing it. And that's kind of funny when that happens. Like, would have been there anyway. But anyway.
I've done that. Guilty as charged. It's like, yeah. So it's like, well, I'm just telling you. It's like, all right, that's fair. I just didn't like it. Now I have to face it. Fuck. But on the other hand, if you just get out of the way, you're just like, thanks. Where? Can you point it out? Maybe just grab it for me, because I can't fucking find it. You might be crossing a boundary there. I don't know. The point is that we can all work together towards a mutually beneficial, not end result, but I guess relationship with the ongoing moment would be the best way to put it. This has been a fun call-in show. For anybody who didn't have a chance to call in, we appreciate you at least trying, and we would love to talk to you next time. We do this every 2 weeks, so you can join us again 2 Tuesdays from now at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow, we have a free public group at 6 p.m. Eastern time. We do that every Wednesday, so you can join us in a giant group environment, shoot the shit with us, share your story, ask a question, maybe, again, air a complaint, because that happens. And aside from that, if you can join us on Patreon in the next 15 minutes, we would love to see you. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.